All right. Strap yourselves in for a deep dive of epic proportions.
Oh, yeah.
Because today,
This is a big one.
we are tackling
Yeah.
the Discworld.
All 41 books.
All 41 books
Of Terry Pratchett's.
of Terry Pratchett's wonderfully weird
Wonderfully weird, yeah.
and insightful creation.
And insightful, it's a massive undertaking, even for seasoned Discworld fans.
Right.
But I think that's part of the beauty of this series is that you can approach it from so many different angles. Whether you're drawn to the satire, the philosophical questions, or just the sheer joy of a well-crafted story.
A well-crafted story, exactly.
You know?
And since this deep dive is specifically tailored for you, the listener,
Right.
what are you hoping to get out of this journey? Are you looking to explore specific themes?
Yeah.
Delve into a particular subseries?
Right.
Or just experience the full breadth
Yeah.
of Pratchett's genius?
Yeah, I think knowing your preferences
Will really help us shape this exploration.
Totally.
You know, if you're drawn to strong female characters and the exploration of magic and tradition, we might point you towards the Witches series, for instance, as a good place to start.
Like a good starting point.
Or if you're fascinated by the complexities of law enforcement, social justice, and a healthy dose of cynicism, the Watch series might be right up your alley.
For sure. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even before we get ahead of ourselves,
Right.
I think we have to establish a foundation here.
Okay. I like it.
You know, even though we have all 41 books at our disposal, where do we recommend you start your Discworld adventure?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is.
Because there's no single right way to read Discworld.
No.
I'm leaning toward Mort as a fantastic entry point.
Oh, good choice.
You know, it's relatively early in the publication order.
It introduces one of the most iconic Discworld characters.
That's a good play.
Death.
Yeah.
And it stands well on its own.
That's true.
So you won't feel lost.
Which I think is important, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to...
It can be daunting.
Yeah, you don't want to jump into something.
Especially with 41 books.
Especially with 41 books, yeah.
But
Mort really does, I think, perfectly encapsulates that unique blend of humor and philosophy.
Absolutely.
That defines Discworld. We encounter death.
Yeah.
Not as this grim reaper figure.
Right.
But as this really thoughtful, even relatable being, grappling with existential questions.
That's true.
And I think that's one of the things that makes Mort such a good starting point is that it introduces the way Pratchett uses these anthropomorphic personifications, like Death Time, the Auditors of Reality, to really explore fundamental aspects of the human experience.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there.
And Mort also introduces this idea of narrative causality.
Oh,
you know, the idea that stories have a power of their own to shape events on the disc.
It's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, and that becomes a recurring theme throughout the series, especially in some of the later books, like Wired Sisters, and Hogfather.
For sure.
And speaking of recurring themes, the power of belief is huge in Discworld.
Absolutely.
It's almost like the Discworld is literally shaped by belief.
Right.
Gods gain power from their believers. Magic works because people believe in it.
It's true.
And even the existence of these anthropomorphic personifications hinges on collective belief.
It's wild.
It's this brilliant way for Pratchett to explore the impact of belief systems in our own world.
For sure.
You know, think about how religion, political ideologies, cultural norms, even all these things influence our actions, shape our understanding of reality.
It's great.
And Pratchett takes this concept to the extreme by showing us the tangible consequences of belief in this fantastical setting.
It's true.
And it's not just about the big overarching beliefs. It's also about personal belief. You know, how our individual convictions or doubts can shape our own destinies.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about a character like Granny Weatherwax, who relies as much on headology, her understanding of human psychology, as she does on traditional magic. Headology is a great example.
I love that. Headology.
Right.
Yeah.
It's essentially the idea that you can influence people and events by understanding their motivations, fears, and desires.
It's like psychology meets witchcraft.
It is.
It's really cool.
It is.
And it's a key part of how the witches, especially Granny Weatherwax, approach problem solving.
Absolutely.
It's like this more grounded, practical approach to magic.
Yeah.
And it speaks to Pratchett's nuanced exploration of power.
Exactly, because he's showing us that true power isn't always about brute force or flashy spells.
Right.
It can also be about understanding people, anticipating their actions, and using that knowledge to your advantage.
I think that's a great point.
And speaking of power...
Oh, yeah.
That's another theme that runs through the entire series.
Yeah.
I mean, Pratchett explores power in all its forms, from political power and social hierarchies to the power of belief, knowledge, even storytelling.
For sure.
He shows us how power can be used for good or evil, how it can corrupt even the best intentions, and how it's often intertwined with our own personal struggles and desires. I mean, think about how the patrician, Lord Vetinari, rules Ankh-Morpork.
Right.
He maintains control, not through brute force, but through this combination of intelligence, manipulation, and an uncanny understanding of human nature.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
It is.
And Pratchett constantly challenges us to question those in power, to examine the systems that govern our lives, and to consider alternative ways of organizing society.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So... we've touched on some of the major themes here.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the structure of the series.
Okay.
Because as we mentioned earlier, Discworld isn't one single continuous narrative.
Right.
It's really a collection of interconnected subseries, each focusing on different characters and locations.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like several book series in one.
It is. It is.
It's just really cool.
So, for example, we have the Witches series, centered around Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Ogg, McGrath Garlic.
Right.
These books really delve into themes of tradition, community, and the practical application of magic.
Okay.
And they often focus on rural life and the challenges of navigating a world that's rapidly changing.
Okay, cool.
Then there's the Watch series.
Oh, yeah.
Which follows the Ankh-Morpork City Watch as they grapple with crime, corruption, and the ever-evolving social dynamics of a bustling, multicultural city.
It's a very busy city.
It is.
And the Watch books are really this brilliant satire of law enforcement and social justice.
Okay.
But they also delve into deeper themes of morality, leadership, and the complexities of defining what's right in a world that's rarely black and white. Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the Death series.
The Death series, right. Which, despite its name, is surprisingly life-affirming.
It is.
You know, we see death not as this fearsome figure, but as this being who's really trying to understand humanity, grappling with existential questions, and even finding a bit of humor in the absurdity of it all.
Yeah, he kind of makes light of the absurdity.
He does. And the Death books often explore philosophical questions about the meaning of life, the nature of reality, the inevitability of change.
Interesting.
And they're surprisingly poignant and thought-provoking, even as they're making you chuckle at Death's attempts to understand human customs and emotions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I see.
So we've covered the Witches, the Watch, and Death.
Yeah.
What about the Wizards?
Oh, the Wizard. They're a whole other kettle of fish, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So the Wizards series, set primarily in the Unseen University, is this hilarious send-up of academia, scientific progress, and the often bumbling nature of powerful wizards.
That's true.
You know? Yeah. They're constantly conducting these bizarre experiments, getting caught up in their own internal politics, failing to grasp basic common sense, all while wielding immense magical power.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is. But comedic gold.
Yeah.
You know, Pratchett uses the Wizards series to really poke fun at intellectual arrogance, the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, And the dangers of unchecked power in the hands of those who are more concerned with theory than practical application. It's brilliant.
It is. And then we have the Industrial Revolution sub-series.
Oh, yeah.
Where the Discworld collides head-on with technology, featuring characters like Moist von Lipwig.
I love Moist von Lipwig.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
And the rise of inventions, like the clacks.
Right.
The semaphore communication system.
Yeah.
That's essentially the Discworld's version of the internet.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It's a fascinating exploration of how technological advancements impact society, the challenges of adapting to rapid change, and the often unforeseen consequences of innovation.
That's a good point.
And then, of course, we have the standalone books that don't fit neatly into any particular sub-series, but offer these unique glimpses into different corners of the Discworld, like Pyramids.
Oh, yeah.
Which explores a civilization obsessed with ancient traditions.
Or Small Gods.
Yeah.
Which really delves deep into the nature of belief and the relationship between gods and their followers.
For sure.
So each standalone book is like this self-contained adventure.
Right.
Allowing Pratchett to experiment with different settings, characters, themes.
Yeah.
While still maintaining that signature Discworld humor and social commentary.
Right. I think you're spot on there.
So it's amazing how he manages to create these self-contained stories that still feel connected to this larger Discworld universe.
Absolutely, yeah.
You start to see these recurring characters pop up in different sub-series.
Yeah.
And it just adds these layers of depth and continuity.
I think that's what makes rereading Discworld so rewarding.
It is.
Because you pick up on those subtle connections, the recurring jokes, the ways in which characters evolve over time. It's like revisiting a familiar city.
It is.
And discovering like new hidden alleys and charming cafes that you hadn't noticed before.
Absolutely.
It's a really cool feeling.
And speaking of recurring characters, we haven't even mentioned Rincewind.
Oh, Rincewind.
The hapless wizard who stumbles his way through some of the earliest Discworld novels.
He's great, Rincewind.
Yeah.
He's almost like an anti-hero, isn't he?
He is. He is.
He's cowardly, incompetent, constantly running away from danger.
Right.
But somehow always ends up saving the day.
Right.
Often by accident.
Often by accident.
It's so
He's a perfect example of Pratchett's ability to subvert expectations. You know, you'd think a wizard would be this powerful and confident figure, but Rincewind is anything but.
Anything but, yeah.
And yet his very incompetence becomes a source of humor and even this kind of twisted heroism.
I love it.
It's great.
It's like Pratchett is saying that you don't need to be a traditional hero to make a difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes just surviving is an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah.
Especially on the Discworld.
On the Discworld.
Where things are so crazy.
And
Rincewind's journey takes him to some of the most bizarre and fascinating locations on the disc. From the Agatean Empire. Interesting times. To the chaotic continent of XXX.
Yeah.
In the last continent.
For sure.
And it's almost like
through Rincewind's eyes that we get our first glimpse of the Discworld's incredible diversity. And it's often absurd logic.
Right.
Yeah. And I think... Go ahead.
I love how Pratchett uses these early books to establish the rules of the Discworld.
Just ground rules.
Yeah. You know, we see how magic works. How the gods interact with mortals. How different species coexist. Or often clash. In a society that's both familiar and utterly bizarre. It's really cool.
It's almost like he's building a foundation for the more complex and nuanced stories that come later.
Right. So
the early Rincewind books are like this crash course in Discworld culture and humor. And they kind of prepare you for the deeper dives into themes and character development that we see in the later subseries.
It's true. It's true.
Now, speaking of character development, one of the things that's so fascinating about Discworld is how Pratchett's characters evolve over time.
Right.
They're not static figures stuck in a particular role.
Right.
They grow.
Right.
They learn.
Yeah.
They make mistakes. And they ultimately become more well-rounded individuals.
That's a great observation.
And that's especially true for characters like Captain Vimes.
Oh, Captain Vimes, right.
Who starts out as this cynical, burnt-out copper in guards, but gradually transforms into a compassionate, even idealistic leader who genuinely cares about making Ankh-Morpork a better place.
Yeah, he really does.
It's compelling.
It is.
To see Vimes' journey, you know, you see him battle against his own inner demons, his struggles with alcoholism, his deep-seated prejudices.
It's true.
But ultimately, he chooses to do the right thing, even when it's difficult.
Right.
Even when it means challenging the status quo.
Absolutely.
He's a great example of how Pratchett explores the complexities of morality.
Yeah.
You know, there are no easy answers on the Discworld.
Right.
No clear-cut heroes or villains. Even the most well-intentioned characters make mistakes.
It's true.
And even those who seem irredeemable are capable of surprising acts of kindness.
That's true.
And I think Vimes' growth is mirrored in the evolution of the Watch itself.
Right.
You know, it starts out as this corrupt, incompetent institution.
Right.
But under Vimes' leadership, it gradually becomes a force for good, a symbol of justice in a city that's often teetering on the brink of chaos.
That's true. That's true.
And it's a good reminder that even within flawed systems, individuals can make a difference.
It's true.
It's about speaking truth to power, holding those in authority accountable, and constantly striving to create a more just and equitable society.
Absolutely.
And speaking of flawed systems, Pratchett doesn't shy away from tackling social issues in his work. He uses satire and humor to address topics like prejudice, inequality, poverty, the abuse of power.
It's true.
I mean, think about the way he explores racism through the complex relationships between humans, dwarfs, trolls, and other species in Ankh-Morpork. Or how he examines gender roles and the challenges faced by women in this patriarchal society through characters like Agua, the first female member of the Watch, and the formidable witches of
Yeah, that's a point.
He also doesn't shy away from critiquing religious institutions and the dangers of blind faith. Books like Small Gods and Carpe Jugulum really challenge you to think about the role of religion in society and how belief systems can be used to control people or justify
harmful actions.
I think that's a really important point.
And
it's amazing how Pratchett manages to tackle these really heavy topics with wit and humor, you know, making you laugh. Even as
expert speaker,
you're forced to confront these uncomfortable truths about yourself and the world around you. But he does it in a way that's, you know, still entertaining and thought-provoking.
He has this knack for making you think. Without being preachy.
Exactly.
You know, you never feel like he's lecturing you. He's simply presenting different perspectives. Inviting you to draw your own conclusions. And I think that's really powerful.
It is. He always leaves you with this sense of hope. Even in the darkest stories, there's always this glimmer of optimism, this belief in the power of individuals to make a difference, even if it's just in their own little corner of the world. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Pratchett's writing style.
Okay, love it.
Because one of the things that I love about Discworld is the way he plays with language. He's a master of puns, wordplay, and these witty asides that often break the fourth wall and make you feel like you're in on the joke.
Absolutely.
His footnotes are legendary.
I was just thinking that. His footnotes are amazing.
They're great. They're like these little mini stories in themselves.
Right.
Adding another layer of humor.
Yeah.
And often providing insightful commentary.
On the main narrative.
It's true. It's like he's having this conversation with the reader.
He is.
You know, like winking at you from the page and inviting you to share in the absurdity of it all.
Exactly. And his use of satire is masterful. He takes these familiar tropes from fantasy and mythology and kind of turns them on their heads, uses them to make these insightful observations about our own world.
Like, for example, the way he portrays vampires in Carpe Jugulum.
Oh, right.
You know, they're not brooding romantic figures.
No, they're a family of aristocratic bloodsuckers who've decided to modernize and embrace marketing techniques to spread their influence.
And it's brilliant.
It's great. It's this hilarious and chilling commentary on how easily evil can adapt and disguise itself, and how even the most traditional monsters can evolve to fit the times.
Exactly.
And let's not forget the death of rats.
Oh, the death of rats?
A recurring character who's essentially Death's apprentice. But in the form of a small, wisecracking rodent. It's so Pratchett.
It is so Pratchett.
It's genius.
It's genius. He takes something that's often seen as morbid and frightening, death, and he turns it into this source of humor and even comfort.
Yeah, I agree.
The death of rats delivers these one-liners, offers philosophical musings, and it just makes you question your own perceptions of mortality.
I think that's a good point.
It's such a perfect example of how Pratchett balances humor and pathos, you know, making you laugh, even as you're contemplating these big questions of life and death.
Absolutely.
Now, we've talked a lot about the sub-series and these recurring themes, but I think it's important to acknowledge that each Discworld book also stands on its own as this unique and compelling story.
Absolutely,
You can pick up any Discworld book and find something to enjoy. Whether it's a fast-paced adventure, a thought-provoking exploration of a particular theme, or just a delightful escape into a world that's both familiar and wonderfully strange.
It's true.
And while there's definitely an overarching continuity to the series, Pratchett doesn't rely heavily on previous knowledge. He provides enough context in each book to allow you to jump in at any point and still enjoy the story.
I think that's what makes it so approachable.
It does. That being said, there are certain books that benefit from having some background knowledge, especially the books that deal with recurring characters or specific events that have shaped the Discworld.
For sure.
So, for example, if you're really interested in the Watch series, it's helpful to start with guards. And follow the progression of Vimes and the Watch as they evolve over time. Or if you're drawn to the witches, you might want to begin with Equal Rights and then move on to Weird Sisters and Witches Abroad to really get a sense of their dynamic and their unique approach to magic.
Absolutely,
But ultimately, the best way to experience Discworld is to just find a book that sparks your interest and just dive in. Let the story carry you away. Immerse yourself in the language and the humor and just see where the journey takes you.
I think that's a great point.
And don't be afraid to jump around. If one book isn't grabbing you, try another one from a different sub-series or a standalone adventure. There's something for everyone in the Discworld.
Absolutely.
And chances are you'll find multiple books that resonate with you.
It's true.
Now, as we've been talking about these individual books and their unique qualities, is there anything that's particularly stood out to you?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So many incredible characters.
Right.
And moments come to mind.
Yeah.
But I think what strikes me most is the sheer breadth of Pratchett's imagination.
Yeah.
You know, he created this entire world with its own history, culture, and logic.
Right.
And yet, it constantly reflects back on our own world, making us laugh, think, and question our assumptions.
It's that balance of the fantastical and the relatable that makes Discworld so enduring.
It's true.
You know, you can get lost in the absurdity of a flat world carried by elephants on a giant turtle.
Right.
But then you encounter a story that resonates with this very human experience, whether it's dealing with grief, facing prejudice, or simply trying to find your place in a world that doesn't always make sense.
It's true.
And that brings me to another thought.
Okay.
How does Pratchett's own life experience, especially his later struggle with Alzheimer's disease, inform his writing?
It's a good question.
I mean, we have his nonfiction collection, A Slip of the Keyboard, which offers glimpses into his personal reflections.
It's a powerful collection.
It is.
Especially reading it with the knowledge of his diagnosis. You see his sharp wit and humor shining through it. But there's also this layer of poignancy, this deeper reflection on the fragility of life and the importance of making the most of the time we have.
It adds another dimension to his work.
It's true.
You know? Knowing the author's own struggles, I think, can deepen our appreciation for these themes of mortality, resilience, finding meaning in a world that's often chaotic and unpredictable.
I think that's a great point.
And speaking of facing the unknown, we can't wrap up this deep dive without mentioning the Long Earth series.
Oh, yeah.
Which Pratchett co-wrote with Stephen Baxter. This series takes us beyond the confines of the Discworld and into a multiverse of parallel Earths. It's a whole different kind of exploration, dealing with the possibilities and consequences of infinite choices.
It's mind-boggling.
It is.
To think about, isn't it?
It is.
Imagine having access to countless versions of Earth, each slightly different, offering a new path, a new life, a new set of challenges.
A new set of challenges, exactly.
What would you do with that kind of freedom? What decisions would you make?
It's a question that resonates with our own lives, even without the concept of parallel worlds. And we're constantly making choices, navigating possibilities, wondering what if. And the Long Earth takes that to the extreme. You know, it forces us to confront the implications of limited choices and the responsibility that comes with shaping our own destinies.
It's true. It's true.
It's a fitting extension of Pratchett's legacy. You know, he never stopped challenging us to think differently, to expand our imaginations, to question our assumptions about the world and our place in it.
It's true.
And while the Long Earth series takes us in this new direction, it still carries that unmistakable Pratchett charm. You know? You find his wit, his social commentary, this unique blend of humor and thoughtful reflection woven throughout the narrative.
I think that's what makes it so special.
It is. It's a testament to his enduring influence as a writer, even in this collaborative project. So,
look, as we approach the end of this deep dive, I find myself wondering, where do we go from here? You know, we've covered so much ground, but it feels like we've only scratched the surface of the Discworld.
That's the beauty of it. There's always more to explore, more to discover, more to laugh about, and more to ponder.
It's true.
Each reread offers a new perspective.
A fresh insight. A deeper appreciation for Pratchett's genius.
For sure.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting their Discworld journey?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because it can feel overwhelming.
It can.
With 41 books. Multiple subseries. A cast of characters that rivals the population of a small city.
It's very true.
I would say don't overthink it.
Okay.
Just pick a book. That sounds
Mhm.
interesting to you.
Right.
Whether it's Mort Guards, Wired Sisters, or even a standalone adventure. Like Small Gods. Don't worry about reading them in any particular order. Pratchett's writing is very accessible and engaging. Even if you
jump around a bit.
I agree.
And don't be afraid to consult resources like reading order guides or fan wikis if you want to delve deeper into specific sub-series or follow particular character arcs. There's a whole community of Discworld fans out there eager to share their love of the series and help newcomers navigate this wonderfully weird and insightful world.
Absolutely.
Most importantly, approach Discworld with a sense of humor and an open mind. Be prepared to laugh, to be challenged, and to be surprised.
Absolutely.
Because Pratchett's writing has a way of
sneaking up on you, making you chuckle one moment, and then prompting deep reflection the next.
So as we bid farewell to this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. The Discworld is more than just the series of books. It's a community, a shared experience, a way of looking at the world with a blend of humor, cynicism, and ultimately a belief in the power of humanity to do better. Even in the face of absurdity.
It's a legacy that continues to inspire and entertain readers of all ages, reminding us
that even in a world that's often chaotic and unpredictable, there's always room for kindness, courage, and a good laugh.
Absolutely.
So, until next time, fellow travelers, may your luggage always find you.
I love that.
May your head be full of headology, and may you never forget the importance of a good story.
That's beautiful. And it brings me to another thought. How does Pratchett's own life experience, especially his later struggle with Alzheimer's disease, inform his writing?
It's a good question.
We have his nonfiction collection. A Flip of the Keyboard. Which offers glimpses into his personal reflections.
It's a powerful collection.
It is.
Especially reading it with the knowledge of his diagnosis. You see his sharp wit and humor shining through. But there's also this layer of poignancy. A deeper reflection on the fragility of life. And the importance of making the most of the time we have.
It adds another dimension to his work.
It's true.
Knowing the author's own struggles, I think, can deepen our appreciation for the themes of mortality, resilience, and finding meaning in a world that's often chaotic and unpredictable.
For sure.
And speaking of facing the unknown, we can't wrap up this deep dive without mentioning the Long Earth series.
Good point.
Which Pratchett co-wrote with Stephen Baxter.
With Stephen Baxter.
This series takes us beyond the confines of the Discworld into a multiverse of parallel Earths.
It's a whole...
It's like stepping outside the Discworld for a moment.
It is. It is a whole different kind of exploration. It deals with the possibilities and consequences of infinite choices.
It's mind-boggling to think about.
It is. Imagine having access to countless versions of Earth, each slightly different, offering a new path a new life,
right?
A new set of challenges.
What would you do with that kind of freedom?
Right. Yeah. What decisions would you make?
It's a question that resonates with our own lives.
It does, right? Even without the concept of parallel worlds. I mean, we're constantly making choices, navigating possibilities, wondering what if. Right. The long Earth takes that to the extreme, and it forces us to confront the implications of unlimited choices and the responsibility that comes with shaping our own destinies.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
It's a fitting extension of Pratchett's legacy.
It is.
He never stopped challenging us to think differently, to expand our imaginations, to question our assumptions about the world and our place in it.
Absolutely. And while the Long Earth series takes us in a new direction, it still carries that unmistakable Pratchett charm. Yeah. You find his wit, his social commentary, his unique blend of humor and thoughtful reflection woven throughout the narrative.
It's a testament to his enduring influence as a writer, even in this collaborative project.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Discworld, I want to thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a lot of fun to explore this world with you.
Likewise.
And I hope that you'll continue to explore Discworld on your own.
Absolutely. There's always more to discover.
And if you're just starting your Discworld journey, my advice is to just dive in.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, don't overthink it. Pick a book that sounds interesting and start reading. There's no wrong way to experience the Discworld.
And remember, a good story can change the world.
That's a beautiful thought to end on.